Hey everyone, welcome back to Engelbard Gaming. For a change of pace today, I'm reviewing a brand new game for you. I'll be looking at Machine Gun Fury, developed by Reset Games and published by ES Digital Games. This one was released just a couple of days ago on March 20th, 2026, and is a throwback action game for Steam and most modern consoles. Machine Gun Fury wears its inspiration on its sleeves, but does it do the games that inspired it justice? Watch on to find out. In the interest of full disclosure, I was provided a free Steam key for this review. The company only provided the key, they are not seeing the contents of this review prior to it going live on YouTube, and they had zero input into it. With that out of the way, let's get on with it. Machine Gun Fury is a brand new run-and-gun shooter that dabbles in a few different subgenres of classic 80s arcade and console military shooters. And before I start this review, I will mention the game's price. Ordinarily, it'll be just under $6 new, but currently, at launch, it's on sale for just under $3. So while you're watching this, remember this game is super cheap, especially if you're seeing this review while it's fresh, and price is a factor in a review score. First up, let me tell you about how I played Machine Gun Fury for this review. Most importantly, I beat this game 5 times before starting to write this. I played it on my main desktop computer using a gamepad for 3 of those playthroughs. I did another playthrough on the Steamdeck, and I even played through it one complete time on the Ayn Thor using Game Native, which I'll talk about briefly a little later. I earned all the Steam achievements for the game too, which isn't something I can always do for these, but they're pretty easy for this one, so if you're an achievement hunter, you might like that. For the game, I'll begin with its main menu, and I'll note that you'll see options are very limited and the game has a bit of a bare interface. That's kind of fine for what it is. There are 2 game modes, arcade and story. Mechanics wise, these 2 modes are identical. The difference is you get unlimited continues in story mode and none to start with in arcade mode. You also have a choice of 3 difficulty levels at the start of the game. The devs also added an ultra-wide display mode, but I can't comment on that one since I don't have an ultra-wide monitor. When you first start up Machine Gun Fury, you're greeted with an intro cinematic that includes one of the 3 main characters that may have just been a tad inspired by Rambo. Call it a hunch. And then when level 1 begins, you might think this is a simple Commando clone. If you think that, well, you're wrong! Yeah, most of the first level is very Commando-like in appearance, but the gameplay is significantly different. You'll also notice I said one of the main characters just now, and that's because there are a total of 3 selectable characters. Gunner Jimbo, a Rambo clone, Susie Uzi, who maybe it's just me, but I think her face kind of looks like Jamie Lee Curtis from the 80s, and Minigun Floyd. Each character has unique traits: speed, standard weapon, and defense level. Susie is super fast and in my opinion has the best standard gun, but she does have the lowest defense. Jimbo is your average all-arounder, while Floyd is super slow, has a terrible pea shooter, but has the best defense. Now before I go on to the gameplay, let me tell you that Machine Gun Fury has several gameplay style variations in its 8 levels. We've got a few straight up overhead action levels like this first one, 3 side-scrolling levels that are sort of Contra-like, 1 level where you're in a Jeep a la Jackal for the whole area, and there's also a level where you'll just pilot a boat through the duration. The devs definitely packed in a decent amount of variety here, and pretty much all of it is a callback to a classic game, whether that's Commando, Contra, Jackal, Robocop, or even Doom. Sometimes that kind of level variety can make a game feel like it has no real identity of its own, or maybe that it does one style of play better than the others, but in the case of Machine Gun Fury, everything is pretty even and fits together okay. You have a variety of weapons in Machine Gun Fury, and every weapon, with one exception, has limited ammo. Each character has a sort of default rifle and can pick up different weapons that include a shotgun, super shotgun, machine gun, rockets, homing rockets, a flamethrower, and a Super Contra-style spread gun. In some levels, you'll get a secondary weapon like grenades or TNT. In the first 2 overhead levels, you can also commandeer a tank, Ikari Warriors style. In the side-scrolling levels, you can jump at different heights and aim straight up or diagonally. And I'll also add here that the map screen that you see before every level looks just a little bit like the one found in Jackal. Now that we have the game mechanics down, let's get into the gameplay itself, and I'm going to break that into 3 sections: the overhead run and gun levels, the overhead vehicle levels, and then the side-scrolling levels. Despite the fact that the overhead levels of Machine Gun Fury definitely look like they were inspired by Commando, obviously the first level especially, they really play pretty differently from that classic as I mentioned. First up, if you've been around this channel for a while, you'll know that I'm not a huge fan of limited ammo in action games like this. I feel like that in a game like this, it just stops you from playing the way that you would like to play it. Now, I never ran out of standard rifle bullets, but several of the power-ups just don't feel like they last long enough. And for the standard overhead levels, they make up levels 1, 2, and 7. In the first 2 levels, you can also pick up and throw grenades to hit distant enemies or enemies behind walls or fences, which is always fun. I'll also let you know that level 1 is probably the hardest level in the game. Once you get level 1 down, you probably won't have too much trouble with any of the others difficulty-wise, although you may get a bit lost in a few of them. Levels 1 and 2 are filled with gun, rocket, and grenade installations along with loads of human enemies that have either standard guns or rocket launchers. You might be tempted to rush on through these enemies like standard overhead run and gun classics, but this is a bit of a different game. Enemies don't respawn and there are no random enemies at all. You might encounter some buildings sometimes where 5 or so enemies will slowly emerge one at a time, but they eventually stop coming. This makes limited ammo a little bit easier to take in this game than some others. At the end of the first level, it's not entirely clear what you're supposed to do once you reach this point with all the lasers. The lasers, if you walk through them, will damage you pretty severely and kill you quickly. I'm not going to spoil the whole game for you or anything like that, but I will help you out and let you know that you have to just advance the screen enough for enemies to spawn out of the headquarters building that is above the lasers, and then kill the enemy soldiers who can walk through them no problem. After that, the lasers will just turn off and then you can advance and finish the level. Now, the one exception I mentioned to the limited ammo rule comes when you're piloting a tank in the first 2 levels. You can fire away forever in a tank, but when you're in it, it takes damage, and if it explodes while you're inside, that's game over. And I should probably mention you only get 1 life with an energy bar in this game. In story mode, death just means that you'll have to continue. But in arcade mode, I should note that I started out with only 1 life, and when I died it was game over, but when I play it now, I have 5 lives, I think. I don't know if you get more each time you finish the game in story mode or something, but I'm not clear on what happened there. I should also add that there are health pickups throughout the levels that do make dealing with it a little bit easier, especially in arcade mode. As far as controls go, they are vastly better with the D-pad than the analog stick. With the analog stick, it's almost impossible to do things like walk in a straight line or fire on the exact angle that you want. So I strongly suggest just playing Machine Gun Fury using a D-pad or a joystick if you want to go real old school. And before you go thinking I just have a bad gamepad or something, I played this on my desktop with the excellent Razer Wolverine, and I also did play it on the Steamdeck and Ayn Thor as I mentioned, and I noticed the same problems on all 3 devices. Now, getting back to the levels themselves, these overhead run and gun levels are fine, but you have to proceed strategically through them if you want to finish them. You can't go in guns blazing and expect to win. If you try to do that, you'll walk away thinking this game is impossibly hard. However, if you advance slowly and take enemies out strategically, the game becomes way easier. Some genre fans may think the deliberate approach you have to take makes the game a little less fun than it could have been, but I think it's alright, you just have to go in prepared, knowing what type of game you're going to play. Speaking of deliberate, I will also mention here that the 3rd overhead level, level 7, is a bit of a different animal. It's much more like a cross between Commando and Doom. You have to locate colored keycards to open different doors to advance to different parts of the level, and you'll have to actually do some backtracking. Now, I get what the developers were going for here, but I feel like this level and its search-based theme slow the game down at a time when it should be building momentum toward its end. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not terrible or anything, but I think the game would have worked better if it had just a straight action level here. Let's talk about those 2 vehicle levels. The first vehicle level has you taking control of a Jeep. You can fire your gun, whichever gun you have equipped, straight ahead a la Jackal. You can also fire grenades or rockets if you pick them up in any direction, also like Jackal. Unlike Jackal, however, this is a straight shoot-'em-up level. You don't have to worry about rescuing hostages or dropping them off on helipads. You just shoot everything that moves. This level might feel like a bit of a difficulty spike at first, but it's just another one where you really have to take it slowly if you want to defeat it. Overall, this level is fine and a fun little dose of nostalgia for Jackal fans. It plays out basically like a faster version of the standard overhead run and gun levels, where you also get the added bonus of being able to run over tiny enemy soldiers. But watch that temptation, because they can get lots of shots off while you approach them. The second vehicle level has you take control of a speedboat as it auto-scrolls with lots of obstacles in your way. This is another one that when you first get here seems really hard, but once you figure it out, it's actually super easy. You can move upward to accelerate the scrolling speed, and you can fire to destroy any enemies, crates, or power-up containers in front of you. This level is also the shortest one in the game, and it feels significantly different because of the auto-scrolling and your constant advance forward. But it's definitely a nice change of pace at a point where the game needed it. Finally, we have the 3 side-scrolling levels. They work, they're fine, but they aren't particularly splashy. They don't hold a candle to Contra or Super Contra, but they're not bad. While you're on the ground, you can fire left, right, up, or diagonally upwards. While you're jumping, you can shoot straight down or diagonally down. And as I mentioned earlier, you can control the height of your jump. And one note here, most platforms are set up so that you collide with the bottom of them instead of going through them. That led me to an untimely death or two. Because of that, I'm going to pass some advice along to you now. Make sure you jump over platforms from the side and not from below them. You're welcome. Also, there are times when you'll have to make some blind jumps since you can't control the camera in any way. That's a bit of an oversight by the developers here and something that Reset Games should have added to this, and I would strongly suggest that they add in a future update. Also, the homing rocket weapon that shows up in the side-scrolling levels is pretty useless and doesn't home in on enemies very well. Now, other than those minor quibbles, these levels are fun and we get to see some larger boss-style characters, even though those bosses are really pretty easy to take down and they repeat several times. The game could have really used some unique, memorable bosses and especially an end boss for the entire game. And without being spoilery for the ending, the final side-scrolling level is slightly different from the others in that you don't just advance toward the end of the level, you have a mission to complete. Once you take care of some specific actions, the game takes some inspiration from a classic Nintendo sci-fi action game for its final sequence. Let's wrap things up here. Machine Gun Fury is a fun retro-inspired game that references a lot of old 80s arcade and console games as well as movies. If you were alive back then, some of those references will probably put a smile on your face as you play through this game. At normal difficulty, the challenge is reasonable and most people should be able to finish it without too much frustration. It looks good for what it is. The music, which I haven't discussed yet, is also pretty good. It sounds like a Commodore 64 SID-styled soundtrack rather than the NES-style music that usually accompanies this type of game, which was a nice change of pace for this visual aesthetic. So I'd say the music fits in and adds to the atmosphere, but also I didn't have any desire to listen to it outside of the game. And as I mentioned before, the D-pad control is also perfectly fine and responsive. And once you get the hang of it, a complete playthrough should only take you around 25 to 30 minutes. So it's long enough for a quick action game without overstaying its welcome. And the price tag of just under $6 normally and just under $3 during the sale makes it easy to overlook some of the game's minor issues. Machine Gun Fury certainly isn't perfect and could have used things like randomly spawning enemies, unlimited ammo, and some more thoughtful level design in some areas. I just feel like I'm not having as much fun as I should in a game like this when I have to frequently look at the bottom right corner of the screen to see if I have enough ammo to make my gun worth firing or not. Those analog controls I mentioned earlier are next to useless. Also, that search for the keycards level near the end kind of breaks its rhythm. The lack of solid, memorable boss fights also knocks this game down a run. This game is also kinda screaming for some unlockables to keep players engaged through multiple playthroughs, but as far as I can tell, there really aren't any. Still, I had fun and no problem enjoying myself even through the end of my 5th playthrough. So with everything considered, I'm gonna give Machine Gun Fury a 7 out of 10. And I think if you're buying this game for $3, it's fair to even bump that up to an 8. If you're an old school shoot 'em up fan like me, you'll definitely get your $3 worth out of this one. Oh, and finally, since I promised to mention it earlier, I installed this game through Game Native on my Ayn Thor, an awesome Android dual screen device that I reviewed recently. And this game worked great on the Thor. I was able to completely play it from start to finish without any real issues. Now originally, I tried to install the game through GameHub Lite. Unfortunately, through GameHub Lite, the app wouldn't recognize the system's controls. After wasting an hour of my valuable and dwindling time on troubleshooting, I figured I'd try Game Native instead. And thankfully, it worked on that one without me having to change a single setting. Now when running the PC version of Machine Gun Fury on an Android device, you might see a few graphical artifacts like flashing here or there, but for me, it worked with only the most minor of visual glitches, and it ran just fine at 120 frames per second. The Thor has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, so I can't speak for how well it will run on devices with weaker CPUs. Alright, so Machine Gun Fury is in a bit of a crowded genre filled with lots of great games. That makes it tough for new games to stand out. This one's stab at uniqueness is blending multiple subgenres of military shooters together, and it mostly works well. If you just want a side-scrolling Contra-like game, there are better choices for that. But if you want a touch of Commando, or a sprinkling of Contra, and a pinch of Jackal and some others, then Machine Gun Fury will scratch that itch. Is it worth $6? Yeah, I'd definitely say so. Is it worth $3? Absolutely. Now it's your turn. What do you all think? Have you played this game yet? Had you heard of it before? Did this review make you decide either for or against buying playing it? Tell me all about it in the comments. And that'll do it for this video, my retro gaming friends. If you like what I do here, consider supporting me through Patreon, Ko-fi, or right here on YouTube through Super Thanks or channel memberships. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you won't miss any of my videos. With that, I'll say thanks for watching, and see me later.